If you ever rent a cabin in the woods, check the guest book. And if there isn't one, leave. This happened 3 years ago in late October. I needed silence. After the divorce, after selling the house, after realizing I had nowhere that felt like mine anymore, I booked a remote cabin deep in the Allegheny National Forest. No neighbors, no cell service, just trees. The listing said, perfect for disconnecting. It didn't say anything about reconnecting. The drive-in was longer than expected. The paved road turned to gravel. The gravel turned to dirt. The dirt narrowed into something barely wide enough for my car. The forest swallowed sound the deeper I went. By the time I saw the cabin, dusk was settling in. It was smaller than the pictures suggested. 1 floor, a porch, 2 windows facing the woods. No visible security cameras. I liked that. The key was under a fake rock. The door opened too easily. The first thing I noticed was the smell. Not rot, not mold, just air that had already been breathed. You know that stale warmth in a room where someone has been sitting too long? That? The power worked. Lights flickered on. A small kitchen. A wood stove. A narrow hallway leading to 1 bedroom and a bathroom. Everything looked clean. Too clean. The counters were wiped. The sink empty. The trash can spotless. But the couch cushion in the living room had a faint depression in it, like someone had just stood up. I told myself that was paranoia. Cabins settle. Fabric sags. Wood shifts. It was getting dark fast, so I brought my bags in and locked the door. That's when I noticed the second thing. There were 2 mugs in the sink. Clean. Dry. Upside down. I checked the listing again. Deep cleaned before every stay. Maybe the cleaner forgot. Maybe I was overthinking. I rinsed one and made coffee. And that's when I saw the guest book. It was on the small table by the couch. Leather bound. Open. I don't know why I hadn't noticed it earlier. It was open to the last page. The ink was fresh. Not faded. Not smudged. Fresh. The handwriting was messy. It read, "If you're reading this, you got here after me." My stomach tightened. I flipped back a few pages. Entries from months ago. Families. Couples. Hikers. Normal comments. Beautiful stay. Loved the peace and quiet. Will come back in spring. Then the most recent entry again. No name. No date. Just that sentence. "If you're reading this, you got here after me." I looked around the cabin. It was silent. Completely silent. No wind against the walls. No creaking. No insects. I closed the book. And that's when I heard it. A soft knock. 3 taps. From inside the wall. Behind the couch. I froze. Not loud. Not aggressive. Just deliberate. Knock. 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 Then silence. Cabins pop and shift, I told myself. Temperature changes. Old wood. But this didn't sound like wood. It sounded hollow. Like something tapping from inside the wall cavity. I stood slowly and pressed my ear against the wall. Nothing. Then, knock. Right next to my ear. I stumbled back. The knock followed. Slow. Measured. Moving along the inside of the wall. Tracking. I grabbed my phone instinctively. No signal. Of course. The listing had warned about that. I turned all the lights on. The cabin felt smaller now. Compressed. Like the trees outside had leaned closer. The knocking stopped. I waited. Nothing. I laughed nervously. Actually laughed. Because the alternative was worse. I told myself I'd been listening too closely. That silence makes small sounds feel big. I made dinner. Ate standing up. Didn't sit back on the couch. When I finally went to bed, I locked the bedroom door. There was no lock. Just a simple latch. That's when I noticed the scratch marks. On the inside of the bedroom door. Long. Vertical. like someone had dragged something sharp down the wood repeatedly, from the inside, trying to get out. I barely slept. Sometime in the night, I woke up. I didn't know why at first. Then I realized the cabin wasn't silent anymore. There was breathing. Not mine. Slow, steady, coming from the hallway, right outside the bedroom. I held my breath to make sure. It continued. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. And then, very softly, a whisper through the thin wood of the door. You got here after me. My blood ran cold. It wasn't outside. It wasn't in the woods. It was inside the cabin. And it wasn't trying to break in. It was waiting. I didn't open the door. I didn't move. I stayed perfectly still until the breathing stopped. Until the forest outside slowly began to wake with faint morning light. When I finally opened the bedroom door, the hallway was empty. The front door was still locked. The windows closed. But the guest book was no longer on the table. It was sitting on the kitchen counter, open to a new page, in the same messy handwriting. Now you're here. I stared at the guest book on the counter. No, I whispered. No, this isn't real. The handwriting was jagged now, as if someone had been shaking while writing. Now you're here. I looked around. The cabin was exactly the same. Silent. Still. Perfectly ordinary. Too ordinary. The walls. I started noticing things. Shadows along the baseboards that didn't match the light. Small scratches in the wood floor. Not random. They formed patterns, almost letters. I couldn't read them. I checked the hallway. Nothing. Bathroom. Empty. Windows. Closed. And yet I could feel it. Not seeing it, not hearing it. Feeling it. A presence in the corners of my vision. Something moving just outside the range of light. Something observing. I grabbed my phone. No signal. Of course. The same as when I arrived. I paced. The cabin wasn't large. Just a living room, kitchen, hallway, bedroom, bathroom. But it felt like a maze. The shadows were growing, stretching along the walls, moving slowly, almost like the house itself was breathing. Then I heard it. A creak from the ceiling. Not the roof. Inside, above the living room, someone or something was inside the walls. I froze. I've been alone in my life. I've been scared before. Fear of the dark, fear of the storm, fear of losing everything. None of that prepared me for this. I edged toward the living room. The floorboards groaned beneath my weight. The air grew colder, damp, heavy. The scratching started. Slow, deliberate. Across the wall above the couch. I couldn't tell what it was. Nails? Claws? Or something that shouldn't exist. I backed up. Then a soft whisper. Right behind me. Don't leave. I spun around. Nothing. The window blinds moved slightly, but no breeze. I grabbed the flashlight from my bag. Its beam shook in my hand. I swept the room. Nothing. Then I saw it. The bedroom door. Inside. Not the bedroom. The door itself. Scratch marks, fresh this time. Vertical lines, deep gouges. They went from the bottom of the door to the handle, like something had tried to open it from the inside. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room with the flashlight listening. Hours passed. And then, just before dawn, I heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate. From the hallway. Not heavy, not rushed, but confident. They stopped outside the bedroom. And then I heard it soft, breathy, almost patient. You're next. I left the cabin at first light, but something made me stop. The front door. It was locked. I hadn't touched it. I tried the knob. Tight. Secure. I could feel it watching from the walls, from the corners, from behind every closed door. And I knew I wasn't leaving today. Not until it allowed me to. I spent the morning pretending everything was normal. I ate breakfast, coffee, toast, checked the windows. Nothing. But the feeling never left. The shadows, the walls, that whisper. And then I noticed it. A small hatch under the kitchen sink. I had never seen it before. It wasn't in the listing. The pictures never showed it. The handle was old, rusted, and hidden beneath a false panel. I hesitated. Something deep inside me screamed not to open it. But curiosity, that fatal flaw, pushed me forward. I pulled. The hatch creaked and fell open. Inside was a ladder. Metal. Cold. Descending into darkness. A faint smell rose, damp earth mixed with something metallic. The air was warmer at first, then cooler as I descended. Step by step, I went down. The ladder ended in a small, cramped basement. Concrete walls. Dirt floor. But that wasn't what made me stop. It was the smell. Rot. Decay. And something else. But the corners, the angles, the shape of the room's subtle shifts that disoriented me. I sat on the couch, flashlight in hand, listening. Scratches. Whispers. Breathing. Hours passed. Then, footsteps upstairs. I live alone. There's no one else. The cabin wasn't empty. And I realized in horror. It never was. The footsteps upstairs stopped abruptly. I held my breath, listening. Then I heard it. Not a footstep. Not a door. A whisper. Soft. Almost patient. Come down. I didn't move. I knew the sound wasn't coming from the floor above. It was coming from inside the walls. The cabin had learned me. It had learned how I reacted. How I breathed. How I hesitated. Every sound I made had been cataloged. I could feel it moving in the corners, stretching along the walls, expanding. I had no choice. I opened the hatch again. The ladder stared at me. The basement. The place I had run from. But I knew now that the thing in the alcove, the previous guest, was still there. Or part of it was. Something had merged with the cabin. Something that could imitate. Something patient. And waiting. I descended slowly. Step by step. The smell was worse now. Rot. Damp. And something alive. The alcove was empty. Or so I thought. Then I noticed the markings on the dirt floor. Footprints. Small. Human. But not quite human. They led to a small tunnel in the back corner of the basement. Curved downward. Not natural. Not man-made. It led deeper. I swallowed hard. And I entered. The tunnel was narrow. Low ceiling. Concrete walls. Strange markings, claw-like scratches. I felt eyes on me. From the walls. From the ceiling. From the shadows themselves. Then I saw it. A figure. Crouched. Thin. Pale. Hollow-eyed. The previous guest. Or what remained. It tilted its head toward me. You shouldn't have come, it whispered in a voice that was half mine, half something else. I ran. I ran blindly through the tunnel.
The walls seemed to pulse, breathe, stretch. I could hear it behind me, moving, not running, just following. And then light. The ladder. I climbed as fast as I could, slamming the hatch shut behind me. I ran out of the cabin. Into the forest. Branches tore at me. Roots tripped me. The shadows seemed to reach for me. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. Weeks later, authorities found the cabin. Collapsed. Hollowed out from the inside. No bodies. No signs of life. No one could explain it. They said it was abandoned. Dangerous. I never returned. But sometimes at night, I hear the whispers. Not from the forest. Not from the neighbors. From inside my own walls. And I know, somewhere out there, the cabin waits. And the next guest is already arriving.